So on this next tank tour, this is my 40-gallon breeder. It's set up for Lake Tanganyikan shell dwellers. I hope to add a couple species, maybe some top dwellers up here, and maybe some Juliochromis to live in the rockwork. But for now, it's got the shellies in it. You've probably seen some videos I've posted of them. But these guys are really cool. They do all sorts of landscaping on their own. Let me get a little closer here. So if you look back a few weeks, you would notice that I put in a nice flat layer of substrate, and they have been going to town with building. Most noticeably this female over here, that girl right there, she's been just excavating and rearranging her shells. Noticeable breeding activity. And so these guys, I mean, they've been settled in for about 2 weeks into this new tank, and they've just really, I mean, acclimated super well. So this central section, these guys, the biggest group of them all together here, they have dug down to the glass. I don't know if we can see that. Yeah, like under that shell in the middle, you can see just a little bit of reflective glass. So they've dug out, and I didn't put in a super thick layer. It was about 1 inch total. It's really amazing how much 1 inch can do. I mean, look at this hills and valleys here that they've put in where it was 1 inch thick even everywhere. So these guys have dug out. You can see the older shells. They're the ones with the green algae on there. And then the new, brand new shells they have just added when I moved these guys. I think noticeably that some of this section, there's a lot of young living here. These little fry guys. They're just past, like I'll come out of a shell when I think it's safe. And they have been just hanging out together. So one thing that happened when I moved is a lot of the parenting structures changed. So all these little fries decided to go in the same area. I mean, there's like one that lives over here with his mom and such, but as a whole, this whole age group of fry just decided to colonize in this one section with the dominant male. That's him right there, waggling his tail at us. And so they've been doing this. I of course put some non-shell areas, and they have been like digging out around the plants, which I think is really interesting, like using leaves, like this leaf here. This guy that's right there, he actually dug out under it and made it sort of his little habitat, which I think is really cool. And then there's another female, a couple shells back there that she staked out. And of course you can see these guys, they're just doing all their things, their territory stuff. So they went from a little 10-gallon, and everyone was in there, to this big 40-gallon breeder. You know, that's at least 4 times the floor space. I would have to do the math to be sure, but it's at least 4 times. So they got to really spread out. They were all living right on top of each other. And you can see all of these new escargot shells. That's all what was added when I upgraded the tank. So it was a bag. I think it had 36 of them in there. So you can see the ones that have the green algae were the ones that were out of their old tank, these old snail shells and such. And then some other weird behavior that I've been seeing is there is like this piece of gorgeous wood that I found at Fanatics, and you see him right there in the middle. He like lives, and there's another one up there. They like have staked out the wood or the rock, which I think is really bizarre since there's plenty of open shells, and those are both really young. They don't have their stripes yet, so they could really easily live with the adults, but that they've like already staked out sections of rockwork is really quite unique, I think, to them. And then of course there's this flower pot in the back, which someone decided he needed to add sand to, and he's been pulling out the clay pellets in it, which I think is really weird. And then someone else has excavated, oh, it's weird to the water angle. You see under the rock work. Now these rocks were added before I added the sand, so they're sitting right on the bottom of the tank, so I don't have to worry about them unsettling them and them falling or anything. But that guy has decided he's a cave dweller, and he has created a cave under the rocks, and I don't know if you can really see it. Zoom works terribly on the camera, but he's decided that that's his spot, and he has a shell outside, but he really just dug out that cave. And meanwhile, I again planted some other plants, and of course shell dwellers are always like, plant needs to go. And so there's this group here that they decided could stay, but then there's this piece that you see just right here hanging up in the middle, and that was planted like right there, and this guy in his digging also decided the plant needed to go. So a lot of that, I just let that plant float a lot because I'm using it for nitrate export as well as some greenery. I can't have a tank that doesn't have some greenery in it. So, I mean, they've left this one in this pot alone, but that pot used to have a bunch planted in it, and they all decided that that was a new cave opportunity. And then I have some driftwood in here, and I know that's not really normal for a Tanzanican tank, but I plan on putting a bristlenose in here just to help with algae control. So I figured he'd want some, and this piece, I found it, I don't know, months ago. A couple years ago actually. It's been soaked and then just been sitting waiting for some cool landscape. It's just a really neat piece. It's got, I can't really get a shot of it, but a nice hole all the way through this piece coming up, and then it has a hole right there, and some really neat cave structures, which the shell dwellers, surprisingly enough, have totally been taking advantage of. You can see they're burying it a little bit. Shell dwellers are always rearranging their tank, as you know. But you can see there's like a couple living behind it. I think the secondary male lives back there. But it's hard to tell. Like, sometimes I'm like convinced I have like one male, and sometimes I'm convinced there's three. They say the males are a lot bigger than the females, but I've like literally seen females that are like bigger than the one that I'm pretty sure is my male. But I think that's a male and that's a male, but I could be totally wrong. There just seem to be the ones that usually doing like the teed down breeding posture versus trying to get females to come to them. They tend to be females trying to get the other way. So then there's another really neat piece of wood or rock back there. I'd like to get more rock. I want to be really particular about it, so I'm just not going to go buy a ton of it and throw it in and hope I like it. I'm picking pieces that can stand up on their own and be useful. So that sponge filter in the bag, that was what was running the 10 gallons, so I just moved it over with them, figuring that that was already keeping their biomass down and all their plants came. And then I cut some of the wisteria plant from my 75, and it's doing great. I added it when I put this in, and it has doubled in height, which isn't shocking for wisteria, but this tank has a super low light on it. This is the light that came with my 75 build, and it's 36 inches, which I thought that was kind of dumb. PetSmart put a 36-inch light on a 48-inch tank, and thought that could like actually illuminate it, but it's just sitting around waiting for something. And when I put this together, I was like, oh, I need a 36-inch light, and I have one. So it's definitely lower light than I had in the tank before with the plants to get the algae growth that I wanted, because I really like how these shells look with the algae on them, and that green, I think that's very natural for their environment. See one going in their shell there. Someone has claimed this one, which I'm really excited because it'd be cool if I can get like that close to babies, because it's always fun to see them when they're super tiny. Because I mean, these guys here are like a quarter, 3/4 of an inch, no, a quarter to 3/8 of an inch. There we go. Fractions, always a challenge. And they're probably triple the size as when they first hatch. I do think I lost all of the newly hatched or about to hatch eggs when I did the transfer, so I'm gonna have a little delay in reproduction. But I mean, in all honesty, like, I started less than a year ago with 5, and we have close to 50 now, so they're almost overstocked in their new tank. And then, of course, and I have to show you this because it's hilarious, so this is a little 10-gallon that came out of, obviously it's bared down to nothing. And then let's see if I can see him. He's right here. This guy won't let me catch him. There's one little fry in here, and it's at that 3/8 of an inch size. And he's just a brat about getting caught. So he's living in here by himself, which I feel terrible about because they're very social fish. And so sometimes I see him in the back here, and there's like the smallest Java plant ever. I thought it was dead, so I just threw it back in, peeled the rhizome off the piece of wood and threw it back in here, and it sprouted a leaf. So, you know, it's just kind of hanging out, being cycled with a just HOB on the back and this little stingray light. So this tank had the stingray, and then it also had a shop reflector on it when I was growing the plants. So eventually, when I can catch this little guy, he will go back in here, and I hope he lets me do it soon, because I don't want to wait till he's gotten to the point that they'll decide he isn't family and kill him, and, you know, or beat him up. Although this tank has lots of places for him to hide and stake out territory. For instance, new rockwork from the other guys. So I hope you enjoyed this look. They've been doing lots of fun stuff lately. Of course, if I fed them some microrums, they'd all be out eating. But you can see just lots of re-landscaping going on with them, and lots of fun new activity. Alright, so all that's left is a little beta guy, and he's getting, in the next month or so, some reworking in his tank. So see you in a few.